Pros and cons of Dubai. Anybody got Dubai companies in here? Nobody. Wow. This might be the first time in a few years I've ever asked a crowd and nobody had a Dubai company. All right. What's that? Used to. Okay, no more. The tax-free profits on businesses in the free trade zone. There are some exceptions that apply there, some restrictions on becoming a free trade zone. Otherwise, you pay 9% company tax on most other type of companies. That makes it attractive. Also, for any of you looking to get tax residency in Dubai, because there is zero personal tax if you're a Dubai resident, you can register a company in Dubai and hire yourself, and then if you stay in Dubai 30 days, then you can be a tax resident of Dubai. That would be a good option here. Cons: high upfront costs, cultural differences in dealing with regulatory bodies and banking and that sort of thing. And then it is complicated. The banking is complicated. I had a talk 2 days ago with somebody here who was having pretty big issues with his Dubai banking because banks in some other countries were not willing to send wires to his bank in Dubai. And back to my first slide, getting paid is pretty important. This could create problems, but I'm not saying it's a bad option. I'm saying under certain circumstances, it can be good. If you're operating in Asia, or if you're operating in the Middle East, or if you are looking for a personal tax residency solution, I think Dubai is a pretty good option for you. Pros and cons of Hong Kong. Anybody with a Hong Kong company here? It's got to be somebody. Just one. All right. Maybe everyone else has figured it out. All right. So low tax rate, 16.5%. Very good business reputation. There is some tax exemptions for non-Hong Kong sourced income, although it's getting a little bit trickier nowadays to have your income classified as non-Hong Kong income. It is an excellent banking jurisdiction. It is very highly regarded. You have all the access to things like Stripe, PayPal, good banking, all that stuff. Downsides: higher initial cost. You do need a resident director now to open a bank account for a Hong Kong company. If you are not a Hong Kong resident, that means you need to hire somebody who is a resident in Hong Kong to open a bank account for you. That person will have signature authority on your bank account, so they will have access to your accounts. There are services that provide that function, law firms and registered agents that provide that service, but you will pay a fee, so that does raise your cost of operation. Hong Kong banks don't really like it if you're not doing business in Asia. I think Hong Kong is a good solution if you have residency in Hong Kong and you are doing a lot of business in Asia. For example, I've got one client who has a large 8-figure e-commerce store in the US, but he buys all of his goods from Asia. We created a Hong Kong company for him to buy all of his goods, and then his Hong Kong company buys them and basically effectively becomes the wholesaler, and then he sells them to his US company. But he does have nexus in Hong Kong. He has a small office with a couple of admin employees and stuff like that. It's a pretty big business. And so he basically treats it as a separate company, a wholesale agency. And so it allows him to shift a bit of his profit into Hong Kong at a lower tax rate. So those types of things make a lot of sense if you are in that scenario. Singapore, this is almost a copy-paste from Hong Kong because they are quite similar. Very stable political, economic climate, excellent banking options, tax rates about the same. You do have some exemptions for certain types of businesses, especially tech businesses, software, that sort of thing. So you can get a lower tax rate than 17%. Like I said, excellent banking, probably the best banking center in the world. Their banking technology, the safety of the banks, quality of service is phenomenal in Singapore. You would have access to all the normal things, PayPal, Stripe, merchant processing, that sort of thing. Cons: strict regulations. Same like Hong Kong, you've got to have a resident director or you can't open a bank account there. And nowadays, most foreign source income will be considered Singapore income, so it would be in most cases would be taxed in Singapore. Again, this is a copy paste from Hong Kong. If you're doing a lot of business in Asia, you need to create a wholesale agency or something like that to shift profits around. This is what I call a hybrid company structure. This can make a lot of sense if you have a foot in Asia. Pros and cons of Georgia. I'm guessing nobody has a Georgian company here, but let's see. Anyone? I only put this slide in here because for some reason in the past year, I have been getting tons of people asking me about registering a Georgian company. Now, my guess is, and I'm not naming names, but my guess is there is a certain marketer in this space that writes about Georgia non-fucking stop, and apparently Georgia has become a big question for people nowadays. Oh, I think Georgia's great, that sort of thing. Anybody spent time in Georgia?
Yep.
Lived in Georgia,
Yeah.
tax residency in Georgia? Yeah. I like Georgia. I actually had my residency in Georgia for about 5 years. But Georgia is an interesting option. I bring it up because it is a big question, and so I just wanted to address it for anybody if you are considering that. They do have a pretty simple company registration process. They have a 15% tax on distributions. Like Estonia, if you make $100,000, you don't pay yourself anything. You keep $100,000. You don't pay any company tax. You only pay the tax on the profit distribution. There is an option to be zero tax if you're in the free industrial zone, although that's not so easy to get qualified in the free industrial zone. That would be more for physical businesses, like if you're importing, exporting goods or that sort of thing, doing some physical work. And there is an option, 5% company tax, if you can get qualified as an international company. It could be a viable option for you, especially if you're doing business in Central Asia, maybe Europe or Asia. However, my big issue is the banking sector. Anybody have a bank account in Georgia? TBC, Bank of Georgia? I have one at TBC. I have one at TBC. I had one at Bank of Georgia. It's okay. It's not ideal, and you could end up with some complications. I have spent way too much time on customer service calls trying to figure out that banking situation when I'm trying to get money out sometimes. But I don't think this is an ideal solution for most of you unless you want to live in Georgia and you are doing a lot of business in Central Asia. Like I said, I just brought the slide up because I get a million questions about this one lately.
But the main reason why people want to go there is because they're not in the common reporting standard, I think.
That is a big reason, yeah. They're
One
not a
of the
CRS country.
more or less only countries which is not in there, which is not in war or some other troubles.
But, so you're right, they are a non-CRS country, so they're not reporting. Does everybody know or anybody know what CRS means? A couple of you. CRS is the Common Reporting Standard. It was a directive published by the OECD in 2016. Basically, it's an info sharing agreement on all the countries that signed this directive about banking regulations and stuff like that. Any of you logged into your EU or any CRS country bank account and it says we need to update your residency information? Yeah, that's all CRS directive stuff. They're collecting what they call KYC information on you to track you for the CRS database, so they can all share information between those countries, okay? I mean, it's what I call a pull, not a push. It's not like it's automatically sent to the tax office the moment you show up or something like that, but it is the tax office or the bank or whatever can query that database to find that information. Anyway, Georgia is not a CRS country. Some people like that because they don't report. But the flip side of that coin is subpar banking sector and having maybe some issues dealing with other countries that consider Georgia to be subpar. I don't know how else to say that.